keep up. Please don't crash. That's 5-0 on your ass. Don't get stuck. My shit blasting up. Window tinted, can't get caught. My bitch bad, sport more leave you on your ass. Taking up.
Yeah. What's the deal, everybody, man? This is Ricky Montoya checking in, a.k.a. the foolest of all bears, and you are now tuned in to I Think You're My Driver podcast, man. So thank you to everybody who has been tuning in with me thus far. Of course, if you are not already following me, that at itymd.podcast, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music Podcasts, and everywhere else and you can enjoy podcasts at. And as always, if you do have a story that you want to share with me, email itymd.podcast@gmail.com. But if you want to connect with me on a little bit more of a personal level, we can refer back to the @ where you can find me on all of those platforms, man. So thank you to everybody who has been sticking with me on this journey here. Today's episode is going to be episode 42. And episode 42's title is going to be called Weird Typa Timing, man. Let me tell you something. So right now I feel like we're in a little bit of a weird times as far as where the world is. But what also is kind of weird is that Uber actually just rolled out a few months back a new program where they are now going to start accepting cash trips. Now on the surface level, it kind of seems a little bit cool because a lot of these drivers really don't even get the opportunity to get a large percentage of their driver earnings. So in a sense, it can definitely work out as far as the surface level. But when you really start to put a lot more thought into the concept of having cash trips, it can kind of, start to become one of those, what would you call it, a cautionary tale, man. Because you just never know what a lot of people are going through. And I mean, let's be honest, whenever you're going to, take a Uber, take a Lyft, a lot of the times you may not even already be feeling good because you're already having to get into another person's car. So what's going to really make it even better for somebody who's not feeling good, has to get into somebody's car because they're missing their own vehicle or just don't have the access to get a vehicle or whatever the case, and them already knowing that you got some cash on hand? Even though if you got $15 on you, man, listen, that's $15 less than I had yesterday. So, when you start to kind of think about the whole process entirely, it just really kind of just puts you back in a mindset to really start to think about yourself. And what I think is kind of interesting is just watching how a lot of these companies are starting to roll out programs to make people kind of think with a lot more paranoia in mind, which I think is good to a certain extent, because I feel like at a certain point in life, you need to kind of have your head on a swivel on a regular basis. In my opinion, bro, I think it's very irresponsible for you to be jumping into positions such as a Lyft or a Uber driver and you not have your head on a swivel, bro. It's very important because you're dealing with a lot of different energies, bro. Thinking about this time in particular, it kind of brought me back to a time, about 5 or so years ago, whenever a lot of us were dealing with the panorama, the pandemic, coronavirus, you feel me? There was a lot of things that were going on at that time to where a lot of us were having to think with our head on a swivel. And for probably a good 70% of a lot of people who have never had to think like that ever in life. Now, I'm not saying that everybody got faced with the same adversity, but at a certain point, it kind of taught you to learn how to fend for yourself, but also learn how to fend for yourself whenever you are making sure that you are staying protected for your family, bro. So it just kind of brought me back into that whole mindset where there was a point in time of like Lyft and Uber, we're talking during the pandemic stint, to where I literally was not getting any type of business. So it's like I put myself back into this mindset to where I'm sitting in a point of time to where I'm doing this to make extra money. 9 times out of 10, when I was looking for the extra money, it was the missing money that I was need to put in place. So if you put somebody in a place to where they, have a penny that they're trying to turn into a nickel, you can only rub so many pennies together to get to that ending goal that you are needing. But when you are on a time crunch, man, and you only got a small little window, what's a person gonna do, man? Let's just go ahead and, kind of set the tone there. Now, just to kind of put myself back into this mindset of where I was picking up where I left off. In the pandemic in 2020, about 5 years ago, I had just started a new job at the very top of 2020. The whole world shut down in March of 2020, and that new job that I just started, I had just got furloughed from. So we're going in the pandemic, world's starting to slow down. Uber and Lyft business is starting to slow down as well. And I'm kind of having to like think about, a little bit more of a long-term plan and kind of figuring out where things are going to go. Now, world shuts down. I'm sitting at home and a couple of months are going by and I'm like, man, like there's not a lot of income that's coming in. I haven't been working. The world's been shut down, but some of these things still got to get paid. And I don't know exactly what was going on at that time, but I do remember that I had to figure out something to be able to pay a certain bill that I was needing to be paid. So my wife and I had a little bit of a discussion, and I remember I was like, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and just jump out there, see if like Uber Eats, Postmates, or DoorDash. I'm gonna figure out something. I really don't want to pick up people because we are in the pandemic. I think if I'm not mistaken, this was actually in the summer of 2020, so it was still kind of in the thick of it, if that's what you want to call it. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take a chance to see what's going. And I remember I get in the car, I go to the gas station, I load up on my regular degulars that I would get. Got to get me a water, a bag of chips, and probably an energy drink or whatever the case that I was getting. So get back in the car, turn on the Uber meter, and I remember I was like, man, it's the pandemic. Like, no, like, yeah, everybody's ordering food, but I'm probably just gonna be taking like sausage biscuits and nothing else. So, $4 or $5 or whatever the case. First request pops up. And the first request that I got to go pick up from is Starbucks. So Starbucks typically can be, a little bit on the pricier end. And, people are going to be paying for, three venti caramel macchiatos for the price of one to get it delivered to them. But to some of those people, it don't really mean nothing. So I'm not really super excited to go and make this trip, but I go ahead and get into the line of the Starbucks. On top of already not being excited to go and make this pickup from Starbucks, as soon as I get to the Starbucks line, there is a line from the drive through window all the way to the drive through speaker box that you place your order through. So, already right off the bat, I'm like, this put a bad taste in my mouth. I'm mad. I'm going to be running late. I'm going to be sitting in this line forever. I'm not going to be able to get a good tip. So, first ride of the day, it's going to be horrible from here on out, is how I'm thinking at that moment because I'm so focused on trying to reach the goal. So sat there for probably about a good 15, 20 minutes. And as I'm sitting in line, right about to get to the window, another request pops up. So I was like, okay. Yeah, go ahead and add that to the list. So, you know, pick up the Starbucks, go and pick up whatever else is going, and I go and make those two deliveries. Now, like I said, whenever I was in that Starbucks line, I already was speaking negative and putting negative out because I was like, man, I'm waiting forever. I need to get this bill paid. There's no way I'm going to be doing this if this is all that it's going to be all day when I try to do that. So, of course, sometimes you got to stay down while you're trying to come up. And what ended up happening, do you ask? Let me tell you. I ended up meeting that goal. I don't really remember what the goal was at this point, but I just remember that I was able to get that bill paid and I was able to make the profit within about 5, 6 hours. So I was like, And it kind of just like sparked that, okay, this is possible. Like all this, adversity that I'm facing as far as like the pandemic wise. But I kind of had to remember that it's like, not everybody's just sitting at home without income. There is some people that are still receiving some income. So I have to, take myself out of it. And that is one thing that I think can be the same link to how you kind of view this change of Lyft and Uber, where they're adding the cash trips, is that you have to take yourself out of it. Now, am I saying this because I performed a lot of Uber trips and, accepted cash or any of that? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, I probably haven't driven for Lyft in probably about a good 2 years. So I'm extremely disconnected to it at this point. But that's besides the point, because I think a lot of it that a lot of people fail to realize is that everything comes down to mindset and how you are viewing a lot of this kind of stuff, man. So it's like, it's a good trait that you can add on to whenever you are interacting with a lot of these people, to where you are ensuring that you are having a good head on your shoulders to have those good thoughts when going into a situation to where it could necessarily turn negative, bro. Now, I'm not saying everything is going to be super positive and you're just going to be able to, shake things off your shoulder like nothing, because there is trouble where there is paradise, of course. But you just got to learn how to make sure that you can maintain a lot of these interactions with people. And kind of just, thinking on the whole cash trip mindset as far as this change, it also kind of started to bring me back to, from the state that I drove in, which is Oklahoma. Oklahoma has quite a few casinos because, we're in the Native American reservation land out here. So it's quite a few casinos out here. In Oklahoma City, to be specific, there's, one of three casinos that a lot of people like to visit. Well, one of four. So, kind of just, name them off the list. We got Remington, we got Riverwind, we have Newcastle, and right outside Oklahoma City, like going west, like you're trying to drive towards Texas, there's another place called Lucky Star Casino. Didn't really go to that place too many times, but I just figured I'd give everybody the knowledge just so that way I can paint a picture for you guys. So I go and pick up this passenger, and I'm picking up her with her mom and her dad or some shit like that. So, we're going over here, and they're like, yeah, we're actually just about to go home. We just did all this grocery shopping and whatnot. But, somebody found $2 on the ground, like an actual $2 bill. I was like, really? And she was like, yeah, like that's like so like rare. Like they don't even make those anymore. And we just happened to like find it on the ground. So we took it as a sign, and we are going to the casino. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's what's up. And I'm like thinking like, taking you guys home, like so I guess you guys are gonna get there, unpack or whatever the case. And so I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. And she goes to tell me that it's like, hey, so like I said, we want to go to the casino, and you already are taking us home to where we're gonna put all the stuff that we bought at the store. We didn't buy anything that needs to be loaded up in the fridge. So if I give you some a cash tip or a tip on the app, however you want to go about it, would you be able to like take us to the casino? And I was like, yeah, like, why not? There's not a whole lot going on. I'll take the extra trip, but I'm just gonna leave the Uber meter running and just allow it to um add the extra charge to the trip. That's what I didn't tell them. So, she was like, oh, okay, cool. She was like, well, if that's the case, like, is it cool if I just do it on Cash App? Because I actually have more money on my Cash App than I do the card that's linked to the Uber. So I was like, yeah, whatever. That's cool. And so she was like, okay. So she pulls out her phone. What's your Cash App? And she's sitting in my passenger seat, and she's, punching in some numbers and whatnot. Fool. Tell me why this lady really Cash App me $5. $5. Five. Like, come on. You really sent me an Abraham Lincoln, and you like really talked this shit up like you're about to like, oh yeah, let me go ahead and slide you this 25 for making this extra trip. And that right there is exactly why I left the Uber meter running, man. So that little 5-10 minute ride just turned into 35 minutes, and you paid extra on top of that because you got me twisted. Let me tell you something. And what was even kind of funny is that like while I'm taking them to the casino, this girl sitting passenger seat with me playing an online slot game. And it was like how I was viewing it, because she explained it to me that she discovered this game on Facebook. And it's always so funny with the type of people that you pick up, because you learn a lot of things that you would have never thought even existed or that people even used. And she goes to tell me that this casino game where she plays slots, she was able to make some money, and it was able to be withdrawn to Cash App or whatever the case. And I'm like sitting here thinking like, oh, okay. So like if you hit and get a little bit, I might be able to, get a little bit more of a tip out of you. So I'm trying to, sweet talk her up and all this, everything. And the whole time that she was sitting there, I could just see her just constantly just hitting the button. I was like, oh, okay. You're not winning nothing, bro. I'll just go ahead and take this $5 and the extra little charge from running that Uber tab. You got me messed up if you think I'm about to make a whole 45-minute trip without this tab on. Yeah. You about to get charged for this trip. That's for sure, bro. And that's the one thing that you really got to make sure that it comes down to, is that you're making sure that you are taking charge when people feel like they're the ones that are in charge. I think that's where this, kind of mindset would come whenever somebody is paying cash for a trip. Because when I was looking over the whole breakdown as far as like how the cash trips even work, Uber has an article on it. And basically what it is that it'll pop up as a request showing, hey, this person's going here. They're going to get picked up from here to take over here. The amount is going to be paid in this, and they are paying in cash, accept or not. When you accept the ride, you get to the destination or whatever the case, they hand you the money, but of course you don't have a way to input change. So basically it's like a manual system. Hey, this ride was supposed to charge this much and this person gave me this much in cash. How much are we doing? So then if they put you a 20 and their ride was $18, you're supposed to put that in. Try to factor in the taxes and stuff like that. Now, the only thing that I was a little leery about is because the whole main thing that I feel like is the selling point as far as this feature is that Uber and Lyft tend to take, I want to say it's like 30 or 40% of your earnings as a driver. So when it comes to you adding in the cash, it makes me wonder as far as like how that's going to go. But I can only imagine how many accounts are actually being flagged by saying like, oh, this person only gave me $2, but the ride was $7. It's just a lot of like, it's a lot of unnecessary, what you would call in corporate world, unnecessary escalations that are going to come out of it. So you have to, basically make sure that you have a backbone to stand up to this, or just don't accept the cash trips to begin with at all. Like that's the one thing that I think is probably the most important tip about this is that if you know that you are not comfortable enough to get into a position like that, they have the option to turn it off. Now, circling back to where I started with this episode, when it came to these whole casino runs, being that I live out here in Oklahoma, I thought it was going to be kind of a regular thing because if you drive by any of these casinos, no matter what day of the week it is, that parking lot is full. Let me tell you something. It amazes me on how many people do go to the casinos. Now, don't get me wrong. Casinos can be pretty enjoyable when you are winning. But when you are losing, I don't know about you guys, but I get pretty upset whenever my money just got flushed down the toilet. But talking to a lot of these people, the one thing that you learn and understand is you have to go in there knowing that you're going to lose and being okay with losing the money that you are putting in the machine. I don't know about you guys, but I don't really like to lose. So hearing that right out the top was like, you know what? I don't need to go. So it was one of those things to where when I wasn't taking that many passengers out there, it really wasn't even a thought in my mind. But another tip, what I think is kind of hilarious is that because it was something that I didn't drop off at, on the couple of occasions that I did drop off people, I took it as a sign. That's where this kind of delusion can kind of come in. And I think, like I say, what it comes down to is when you have a goal and you're trying to reach that goal, and here's this, slight opportunity, you're going to take that chance. So, I'm already having that gambling addict mindset like just in there. Apparently, it's a little chip in my brain that I didn't know was activated until I pulled in a Newcastle parking lot, fool. Let me tell you something. So I didn't really take too many rides going out to the casino, but I remember the very first time whenever I took a passenger out there, driving out to Newcastle Casino, just to kind of set the tone for people who are not from Oklahoma City. Newcastle Casino, if you are in the city, guaranteed it's at least a good, 20 to 30-minute drive from wherever you are. If you are in the city, unless you're on the south side or more. So go and take this trip. I want to say I was picking up like an older dude. We're chit chatting, we're talking it up, and he's talking about, yeah, I try my best not to go here, but I always end up going here at least like 2 or 3 times a month. And, he was like, I like to take an Uber because you never know who's going to follow you out. Like people are always watching over your shoulder. And that's the one thing you need to make sure you are leery of is when you are stepping in the casino that somebody possibly could be watching or could be following you. So it's like a lot of these little tips that he was giving me was kind of like telling me like, ooh, I don't need to be in this place. But like the closer and closer that we were getting into the casino, I was like, I was like, you know what? I've been doing this for about 2 years and I've never dropped anybody off to the casino until this point. So what would be the odds of me losing? I just had like this thing like, you know what? Maybe it's a sign. Maybe I should do this. So, dropped the guy off at the casino. And I drove around the parking lot for probably about a good minute, just trying to debate whether I wanted to go inside or not. So finally, I was like, you know what? F it. You know what? I got about $60, $80 on me. So, I'm going to take this out. If it works, it does. If it doesn't work, it doesn't. It is what it is kind of thing. And I'm just like, you know what? If I end up losing my money, I could just get right back on it and just, start making the money back. So pull into the parking space and I walk inside, go straight to the ATM, which for those of you guys who don't know, do not use the casino ATM. It's not because they steal any information or anything like that, but you're paying $5 to $7 just to take your money out. So just a little bit of a pro tip there. So walk into the casino, go straight to the ATM, and I take my little $60, $80 out. And mind you, I've heard a lot of different things when it comes to people for people who go to the casinos and who frequent these places. So it's either you go in there, you pick a machine, or you machine jump. There's a lot of different techniques, so to say, man. So I'm just kind of just walking around, kind of filling the place out. And also at the same time, I'm trying not to run into the passenger that I just dropped off. Because when I was dropping them off, I was kind of like, man, like, why do people even go to these places? Like, this shit don't even make sense. Like, you're just coming in here to lose your money. And I'm, speaking all types of negative and whatnot. But, little did he know I had every bit of intentions to walk into that building. So, circling the building, I'm walking around, I'm looking for machines and whatnot. And one particular machine just happens to stick out. I got my soda in my hand and I'm walking towards this machine. I was like, I'm going to sit down, plop a little 20 in there. I'll go a couple spins. If a couple spins don't win me anything, I'll just hop off the machine and just keep it moving. So I put my 20 in there. I hit the button a couple of times. I want to say I spun maybe about 4 times, maybe 5. I didn't get nothing but like a couple dollars. So I just cashed out, walked off, and we're just going to go to a different machine. So I feel like at this time I was like trying to cherry pick it because I was like, ooh, like if I want to make my chances, I can't be dumping my money into every machine. You got to make sure it just feels right. That obviously, like I say, that gambling addict chip is in my brain. I just didn't know it until I stepped foot into this casino. So walking around the casino, I end up picking another machine, put my little $20 in there, couple spins, nothing comes out of it. So I hop off of it. So find me a third machine. And this is when I'm down. I think I'm down probably about $40 at this point, which is insane to think about. But in my mind, I was like, maybe if I bet high, I got higher chances of winning. But, when it's $5 a spin and you only got $20, man, have at it, right? So I go to this third machine and I'm down to my last $40 and I put the 20 in. And I remember I was like, okay, I'm going to bet 2 high bets. And then if I lose, I'm going to drop it down a little bit. And if I lose again, it is what it is. So, put in my $20, I lose $10 and then I end up losing another $4. And I'm like, oh, this is a bad idea. And I'm like, but I don't want to jump off this machine. Something about this machine is just telling me, man, like my fingers are tingling, man. I got my spidey senses going. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it, man. I feel froggy. I'm going to get the other 20. So I get the other 20. I put it in the machine. On the same machine, I put in an extra $20. So already down $40 and I put another $40 into one singular machine. So I'm living on a prayer at this point, fool. And I remember on that third or fourth spin, when I hit the button, all the numbers came down and all of a sudden it was like started making all this noise and making music and shit like that. And I was like, what? And so then, the little number racker starts going. I don't even know what exactly I'm even heading towards. I had no goal in mind. I just knew I was like, if I win, I win. If I lose, I'm going to be pissed. So the machine starts singing a song, it makes it seem like it wants to do the Macarena and whatnot. And then this big old icon screen pops up with the number and the number just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. So I'm like, oh man, it's just going to cap out at about $50, it's going to cap out at about $30. And, that shit surpasses $50. It gets up to $100. And I'm like, oh, whoa, okay. And it just kept going and climbing. I remember it stopped, I want to say about $328. After 3 machines and $80, I was up $300. Well, give or take about $200 something, right? Profit wise. But I remember as soon as that thing popped up and it told me, it's like, you win so much, redeem or whatever. I remember I was like, oh, I need to leave. So I literally pulled that ticket out of the machine and I'm looking around. I remember I'm looking like mean as hell, knowing I'm the nicest cat on the planet. I'm like looking around like, man, nobody better fucking touch my ticket, fool. But I know I'm not doing shit to people. So I'm like walking around. I find the cashier. I hand it to them. They do their whole little thing. They print all the money and they just, count it right there in your face. Like you really just won some big money. Yeah, run me my money. So So he counts it out for me, puts it on the counter, and he puts it all together. And he was asked me if I wanted an envelope. And I said, no, sir, I'm perfectly fine. But thank you so much for your time. Take the money, put it in my pocket, and I'm walking around. I remember I was like, just kind of like looking. I was like, somebody fuck with me if they want to, man. I'm going to up it. I ain't got shit on me. But I remember I was just like, man, get to the car, get up out of here. And I remember I had no gas in the car. Didn't want to stop at the gas station across the street because I didn't want to be followed. So I remember I got into the car. I turned the keys, put that mug in the drive. And I remember I was like, don't even worry about putting on a song. Just start singing NBA Youngboy in your mind. So that way, if somebody try to get out to the car, you'd be like, boy. I didn't know what the fuck I was on for. But I just, in my mind, this delusional mindset had me like, listen, if you just perceive yourself in a certain way, there's certain people who are going to go for it and a lot of people who are not. But as long as you believe it in your heart, you can do anything that you accomplish. So I'm up $300 and I leave and I go on about my business. To my knowledge, I'm pretty sure I went and continued driving Lyft and Uber. Couldn't really remember, but it was just like one of those things where I was on a high for a minute. So fast forward and I keep continuing taking these little Uber trips here and there. Like I said, to preface that story, I didn't really take casino rides that often. So when I did have the opportunity to drop these passengers off to the casino, like I say, I took it as a sign that it was time for me to go inside. What's also funny is that when you're dropping people off to the casino, you start to read and understand different type of people that get in and out of your car, man. Everybody always likes to give you all these different tips. Like I was saying, man, you get to a machine, do about 3 or 4 spins, you pull out. You get to a machine, you start betting low, start betting the little pennies. Everybody has these different type of techniques that they try to pass down to you, but nobody likes to tell you what exactly is going to have you win. So you start to get into a different field when you really start to speak with people who are regular casino goers or just people who habitually love to just throw their money away. The one thing that I thought was very interesting is getting to talk to people who actually won big. Like I remember I had this one lady that told me, she was like, I swear to God, like right hand on the Bible, like nobody will believe me and you probably don't believe me, but it happened. It happened. One time I spent 8 hours on one single machine and I won $45,000, which you know what? If that's what happened, that's what happened. I wasn't there, so I can't verify and I don't have access to her, bank transactions. So I don't know what she put in her bank. But you start to, come around a lot of the people who, like I say, kind of referencing back to an old episode, people can come as who they want to believe. And because I don't know who they are, I have to take their stories at face value because they're telling it to me. So I remember I ran into this guy one time who told me that he literally was a professional gambler. Up until this point, I didn't really know that that was a thing, but he told me that his thing was, playing cards or whatever the case. He was like, yeah, man, like, last year, he was like, I won like a total of like $120,000 for the year at the Newcastle Casino. And I was like, for real, bro? He's like, yeah, man. Like, he was like, you can really win some money. He was like, of course. He's like, the key to success is going into that high rollers room and making sure that you have at least somewhere between 300 to 700 ready to spend because you're going to lose at least $200. But the better way to up your chances is to make sure you have more money in your pocket to put in that machine. He was like, because the machine is based off numbers. And he gave me this, stupid ratio. He was like, I have a system, bro. He was like, so I used to be really good in like math and science and stuff like that. And arithmetic was my favorite subject. So I started to take those arithmetic techniques and applied them to casinos. And he's like, basically with casinos, and he's like, I'm not going to give you the full breakdown because this is something that I do to make sure that I can win. But he's like, basically, it's a numbers game. So as long as you always want to be ahead of the curve with the number that you have in mind, you can achieve anything that you want. And I was like, listen, man, like this guy had me sold. I was like, oh man, all I need to do is take out like $1,000 loan, this and that. Like I'm telling you, bro, you get around a lot of these people and you start to like put yourself in a mindset that you had no idea even existed in your brain. But it was just so funny, him telling me all these different ways about how you can put money in and withdraw it back out. And when it comes time for tax season, you can put forth something else to, show to make sure that you put the money back. So it was just a whole like ordeal that I didn't even know was a thing. He started to put these things into my brain to where it's like, damn, I'm so easily influenced because this food had me sold. Like I was like, man, I just got to do this. I just got to do that. And, sometimes, especially when you start to hear things from multiple people, you start to think that some of these things are possible. And ironically, I actually ran into another lady before once who I'm pretty sure I told this story on the pod before. But if you haven't heard it before, freaking one time I go and pick up from Riverwind, which is, just on the other side of Norman, just a little bit past OU College. I go and take this ride, like I say, it's about 10 or 11 in the morning, fool, and I go to pick up from Riverwind. So I go out there and I get to the Riverwind and I'm driving through the parking lot and I finally decide to just park by the door. Like I always say, Uber gives you about a 5 minute timer to allow the passengers to come out to you. So drive around the parking lot and I finally decide to just go ahead and just park it right there by the door. And as that 5 minute timer is going, there's a lady that's standing right outside the door and she looks at me and we make direct eye contact. And she was like, "Are you the Uber?" And I was like, yes, ma'am, that's me. Lady comes out to the car. She gets in the car. And the first thing that she asks, she goes, "Hey, how much are they going to pay you for this ride?" And I was like, "I don't know." And I tell her, I don't know, maybe like $19, $20 or something like that. And she's like, "Oh, okay." And she's like, here about this. She was like, "I'll make you a deal." She was like, "Cause I was about to pay 40 something dollars for this ride." She was like, "How about this? How about we cancel the ride and I give you this money?" And she literally counts out the money. She's like, "I give it to you in cash and we just turn off the app." And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" She was like, "Oh, cool. Oh my goodness." She was like, "Thank you so much for being cool. Thank you so much for being cool about this." She was like, "Cause I literally, the lady that brought me here, I gave her the same proposition." She was like, "And this rude ass bitch just like cut me off and just turned the radio up." She was like, "That's not appropriate." It's like, yeah, whatever, man. Just turn the fucking radio up. I don't even want to talk to you, you lame ass bitch. I was just like, "Oh, okay. It's gonna be one of those rides. I got it." So she was like, but anyway, she's like, "How's your day going? How's your day?" I was like, "Man, it's been pretty cool, man. It's been pretty slow." I was like, "How's your day?" She was like, "Shoot, my day's been amazing." She was like, "Let me tell you." She was like, I came up to Riverwind last night." She said they hit me for about $700 last night. And she was like, "I went home mad as fuck." And I was even more mad because they hit me for $700 and I left my phone here. So I was like, I'm mad to get home, realize lost my money and my phone. So I'm like, damn, that means I got to go back there tomorrow to go and get the motherfucker. I'm just like, okay. So she was like, so I get up this morning and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna pay for another Uber. She was like, I'm gonna take, a little $200 and I'm gonna go and get my phone and I'm gonna hit the slots because it's like, it ain't no reason for me to make this trip out here and not at least try to take my chances, right? And she was like, and it's a good thing because even though they hit me for $700 last night, I hit they stupid ass over the head for $1,300. So $1,300 and I got my phone back. So I'm feeling good. Let me tell you something. And I was like, oh, okay, that's what's up. And so I started asking her, I was like, shoot, like, do you go regularly? And she was like, I mean, it's like my little thing. I like to go here every once in a while. But she was like, I don't really like to go because, like, when you lose, nothing's worse than losing. But like when you lose a lot of money, you gotta kind of take that to the chin. But it's like the next thing that you gotta do is you gotta go back. But she was like, when you win, you can't go back there for a while because then you start to think like, ooh, if I hit them once, I can hit them again. And she was like, and that's where people really mess up. So I'm starting to, like I say, learn all these little tips and tricks and stuff like that to like really recenter the way that you're thinking about the casino. But overall, what I've really come to the conclusion of, stay delusional is all it ever comes down to, fool. Like literally, as long as you're delusional on going into something and thinking that you can do this, you can do whatever the world puts in front of you, is what I'm starting to learn in life. So it's funny thinking about that from the aspect of going to a casino, because people go to the casino to literally just get bent over and robbed out of their pockets. Figuratively, of course. Figuratively, of course. So back to the story at hand. So she goes to tell me like, yeah, I don't really go here like super, super often. She's like, I bounce back and forth from, the Newcastle and the Riverwind. And she's like, I don't really be messing with the one up there. What is it? The Remington with the horses? I was like, yeah, I've heard some things that, you don't really win. She's like, man, I don't be hitting on shit when I go there. Every time I go there, they be fucking my pockets up. So it's like, why am I going to waste my time going to the casino? She was like, I think probably out of the 5 times I've been there, I only won once. And I was like, Okay. And the more that she's telling me, I was like, it don't really sound like this is like a every once in a while thing, but I'm gonna let you go. So, we basically start talking. She was super cool. And I remember she was like, yeah, like, hey, she's like, not to say that this would be like an inconvenience, like, you don't have to do this or not. But she was like, on the way there, you think we could stop at like some kind of liquor store? Cause she's like, I want to get a bottle. And when I get home, I'm all happy. I got my phone back. I won some money. So, like, if we go to the store, I can buy you something or whatever the case. And I was like, yeah, it's fine. Like, I know there's a liquor store like right up the way because we're going up, what is that, 44 or 35 or something like that. And I remember she was like, "Yeah, like we could do that. That's cool." So we're getting closer to the liquor store, and I remember she took a phone call, and I think like her uncle or something were called, and she gets on the phone. She was like, "Uncle, like what you got going, man?" And they're talking back and forth and whatnot. And she was on the phone with the dude, and I remember she was like, "Yeah, like, man," she was like, "I just went over there, went to that casino. Remember the one I was telling you about last night where I left my phone?" She's like, "I go back there this morning to go and pick my phone up." And I'm like, "Man, I might as well make this trip worth it." She said, "Man, I walked out of there with $1,300." So I was like, "Oh, mission accomplished." And I got my phone back. She was like, "Yeah, like today's been overall cool." She's like, "I'm just in an Uber and whatnot." She's like, "Man, this dude cool. He got cool music playing. Like he's this, he's that." And she was like, he kind of handsome too. So this and that. And she was like, but he looked kind of young, so it don't really mean nothing. And I automatically just butt in the conversation. I was like, that don't mean nothing. And she's like, that don't mean nothing. What? She was like, boy, I could be your mom. Like, calm down. But I'm just like, hey man, like you in the car, you trying to throw all these extra passes. We're just gonna see what happens. Of course, I'm not really gonna take the opportunity, but be delusional with me, right? So freaking I literally, we're start going back and forth. We're talking or whatever the case. Get to the liquor store, and she's like, "Okay." She was like, "It's perfect." And for those of you guys who are in the Oklahoma City area, we're off of like Southwest 59th or like Southwest 79th or something like that. And I go to that liquor store right on the corner of I think it's a Shell gas station with a good crispy crunchy chicken. And she was like, "Oh, this is perfect." She was like, "And it's right next door to a gas station." She was like, "Is it okay if I go into both stores?" I was like, "Listen, do what you want to do." And she's like, "You sure you don't want me to get you anything?" I was like, "I'm fine." And as always, I was like, "Listen, I got my water. Don't even worry about it. But I thank you for the offer, though." So she goes in the store. She gets her bottle, gets her smokes or whatever the case that she gets. And get back in the car and start trucking along. And she goes to start, kind of telling me a little bit about her life. She was from Detroit. And I remember she said something about her doing like some hard time and having like a lot of trouble, like getting a job because she was a felon. And she was like, man, so, I moved out here, trying to get a fresh start. And, she's like, right now I got this little funky job. I'm just a little manager at a restaurant. I'm like, you're just a manager at a restaurant. Like, you made it seem like you washing the dishes. Like, what are you talking about? I'm just a manager. But I understand coming from the aspect of just walking out with $1,300 or whatever the case. So she goes to tell me about the job that she have, and the whole time I'm thinking like, oh, you said Texas Roadhouse. That means you could hook it up with the fire biscuits. So should have kept the number in the back pocket just for the biscuits, but whatever. So she's like telling me all about like all these things that she did and how she had kids. And she was like, yeah, I remember when I first, moved out here, we're driving by the Fidelity over there off of what is that, Broadway extension or whatever freeway that is. And she's like, yeah, you see that building right there? That was the very first job that I had when I first moved to Oklahoma. I hated that job. And she, goes basically telling me all about her life, bro. Like I spend way more time with this lady than I really needed to. And I remember she's telling me about like all of these casino trips that she takes. And it was funny when she phrased the casino trick from the beginning, she phrased it as this was something that she did every once in a while. But the longer that I was in the car with her, I learned that the casino was her thing. Like that was like her thing that she did. Like if it wasn't like once a month, it was every time she got paid. So I was like, oh, okay, like that's a problem. But I see where the chase is there. So I'm starting to learn over time that all it is it's a chase and you have a goal in mind and you just have to continue at it. What do they say? Like practice makes progress. You do things multiple times, you're going to get good at it at some point. So I guess that's just the mindset is you just got to go there multiple times and lose a bunch of money to be able to win some of your money back, I guess is the way we're phrasing it. So, drop her off. We go on about our business, man. And, like I say, I start to learn that it's like there's all these different types of people who go into these establishments, but the way how I'm viewing these establishments is not a way that others are viewing it. So when you start to learn other people's point of view on stuff, you kind of find a way to recenter your point of view on this stuff. Last story I remember I pick up, it was late, man. It was probably about like 7 or 8 o'clock on like a random ass Wednesday or Thursday. So go and make this ride. I get this pickup request. I think it's over there off of like 36 and what is that, Meridian? And for those of you guys who don't know, it's about 3 massage parlors on that block right there. Two of them are across the street from each other, and another one is about 2 buildings over. So go and pick up, and I'm ironically picking up from this massage parlor. And this massage parlor in particular doesn't even really have like a parking lot or like a place that you could park at. So, let your imagination run wild on that one. So go and pull up, and I'm pulling up into the back of this massage parlor. It's about 7, 8 o'clock. So it's dark as fuck outside. And I'm sitting outside, and I remember, I put the little note. I'm like, hey, I'm right here in the back. I think there's like a little door, and there's like a car next to it that I'm parked. And as soon as I send that message, within 30 seconds to a minute, the back door opens, and somebody, looks side to side, and then I see him wave on, and this younger lady comes out, and she gets into the back seat. When she gets into the back seat, she has her phone in her hand, and it's dark, like I say, so I can see the reflection of her screen off of my window. And as I'm looking in the window, I can see that she's playing a game of poker. And as I accept the trip, I start to see that we are going to Riverwind, the exact same casino that I just talked about in the last story. So I tried to talk to her a little bit, but she told me right off the bat, she was like, my English is not good, but I can try. So I was like, okay. So I'm trying my best to basically like continue at least trying to conversate and interact with her. That way I don't seem rude. But like basically when I'm talking to her, like she'd pick up a couple of words, and then like there was a couple of them where she was like, she would just kind of laugh, and I was like, it's cool. Don't worry about it. So, I asked her, I was like, do you like going to the casino? And she was like, yeah. She was like, I play, she was like, I play cards. And she literally pulls out her phone. She's like, cards, and shows me the poker game that I could see playing in the window reflection. So I was like, oh, okay. I was like, do you like playing cards? And she was like, yeah. I was like, well, shoot, I don't really know how to play cards. And like I say, I'm just trying to, sweet talk everybody that gets in the car. So I'm like, oh, I don't really know how to play cards or nothing like that. But like, I just need somebody to show me. Like, could you show me how to play? And she was like, oh, like, I don't know. Like I just played on my phone. And I was like, oh, okay. And she was like, but if you go to the casino with me, you can sit next to me. I could show you. I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, I think I might take you up on that offer. And she's like, oh, okay. And just, goes back to her phone. So like I always say, bro, these casinos are about, 15, 20 minutes outside of town from anywhere in the city outside of the South Side. So, it's about a 25-minute ride. We maybe talked 7 minutes out of the 25 minutes. Perfectly fine with me. So as we're getting closer and closer to the casino, she then starts to talk a little bit more. And I remember as we're getting closer to the casino, it's late at night. I'm already way outside of town, and I know I want to get back home because I don't like being stuck in Norman, especially at that time of day. So I was like, oh, okay. And I'm already telling myself that, hey, after this ride, I'm definitely going home. I know that for a fact. But I told her that I'm probably going to go into the casino with her, knowing I had like $10 on me. So I can't jump on a poker table if I wanted to. For those of you guys who don't know, if you ever want to play table games, poker, craps, baccarat, whatever the case, $150 minimum. I don't fucking have that. I don't have that on me. Like, I don't have that on me in this ride, in this story in particular. So right off the bat, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to go into the casino. But I'm being nice and I'm conversating with her. So we get to the casino, pull into the parking lot. And as we're pulling into the parking lot, she's like, are you coming? You coming? And I was like, no. I was like, I got to get home. And she's like, oh, but why? I was like, Cause it's late. Like I'm going home, you know. Like, thank you for, willing to show me. And she's like, oh, but you sure you don't want to come in? Like, it might be your lucky night. And she's kind of smiled, and I was like, you know what? I appreciate it, but you know what? I hope you have a good rest of your night. I'm just gonna go home, whatever the case. And she was like, oh, okay. And like in hindsight, in the moment, I remember I was like, damn, like I probably could have won the jackpot. I could have, won off of this hand or whatever the case. But then like also like on the other side, when I really started to put thought into it, I was like, wait a minute. I just picked you up from a massage parlor at the end of your shift, probably, right? Now you're going to the casino with your earnings at the end of the shift. I don't know what a lot of these people do, and I don't know their personal lives because we didn't talk about it. But if we're kind of just using this same delusional mindset of just, coming as you are and assuming that this is what's going to happen, my mind literally told me that I was like, okay, if I don't win big on this table, or if I win big on this table, she's definitely going to try to, get a little extra service that she was already performing on her shift off the clock. So what's it going to be to add another thing? But also at the same time, something about it in my spirit told me it's like, do not go into that casino with this woman. Did you not learn your lesson from whenever you went into that club with that random ass passenger, man? So, like I say, man, it kind of just like brings me back to everything will always come full circle to no matter what I think this is going to do. If I stay in that delusional mindset and allow myself to continue to be easily influenced to go into a lot of these places, I already sound naive as it is, and I probably look like I'm super naive to anything. So it's like, let me not feed into the look and allow people to pull me into these environments that I 9 times out of 10 don't want to be in. So it was like something to where I learned that it's like, as long as I can stand firm and be like, nah, I don't need to do this, I don't need to do that, I'll be all good. But in the moment, I was like, damn, she might be able to teach me how to win some money and I can learn how to play Baccarat. And that could be like something I can keep in my back pocket. But, like I say, you needed $150 to start just to sit at the table. I had $10, so I was about $140 short. So I didn't know what I was going to need to convince her to pay my tab to put down $300 because something told me that she had it on hand and she was willing to spend it. But I did not want to take the chance of having to convince her to give me my winnings, because nothing's worse than putting your money through a third party source and them winning on your behalf and you having to split it with that said third party, man. So, like I say, man, let me tell you something. I'm going to go ahead and just end it off with this, man. If you are going to decide to make the lifestyle change of going into casinos, like I said in the beginning, go by yourself so you can have an opportunity to learn the system and learn if this is something that you can enjoy. Because one thing that I've learned in life, if you can enjoy something by yourself, 9 times out of 10, you can enjoy it with others. And that's vice versa with, if you don't like something by yourself, you're probably not going to like it with others. But sometimes going places with other people, no matter whether you're losing or you're winning or you're having a horrible time, if you are around good people and around people who can make things seem or feel better than it is, everything is going to be such a great time. So, of course, take that with a grain of salt, because you don't want to end up in a position to where you're going into casinos or you're going into all these places with random people, because you don't know who these people know, man. So, like I say, man, stay delusional, but have a cap on your delusion, man. Let's just go ahead and just end it off on that aspect, man. So thank you so much to everybody who has always listened to all the episodes that I put out, man. I got a couple of episodes that are coming and should be hitting the waves around the same time of this episode, man. So shout out to the homie DJ. He gave me a cool little conversation that y'all will get to hear here probably in the next day or so. So just, keep a lookout for that. Also keep a lookout for the next upcoming episode after that, because my wife and I actually got the opportunity to take a trip, and we did a nice little episode with one of the Uber drivers that we had. So, man, like I say, man, I do always thank everybody who has always tuned in with me thus far. That ad at itymd.podcast. Email itymd.podcast@gmail.com. That's if you want to stay connected to me. Of course, this is Ricky Montoya, aka the Foolest of All Bears, signing off on this one. And I do hope you have a great rest of yours, man. Peace.
150 on a dash, bitch, keep up. Please don't crash. That's 5-0 on your ass, don't get stuck. My shit blasting